In a funny way, that's a hard question to answer. Why does one like making movies? It's really the best job in the world.
My father was doing a Jewish soap opera called the Brownsville Zeder, the Brownsville grandfather. He wrote it and directed it and played two parts, five times a week, 5 across the board, 15-minute show. And he got $35 a week. So, which during the Depression was an enormous amount of money. And so he needed every member of the family to chip in to play any part so that the money wouldn't leave. And from there, I started branching out into other jobs in the Yiddish theater. But when I went to Broadway, which was when I was 11, I worked with great, great, great people. Immediately, there were enormous influences in the sense that workers in the theater dealt with it as craft. No sitting around waiting for inspiration or what have you, no fear. If you had a flop, you'd be back the next season with another play. And that sense of continuity, respect for work, and the meaning of work in these people's lives was very clear to me at a very early age. In those 6 years or 7 years, I did 14 plays on Broadway. As an actor, this is a kid actor. And that sense of, you just do the work. You just do the work. Was very important to me. And it gives you the most terrific kind of respect without putting you in awe of anything. You're not in awe of anything. None of it is mysterious. Many, many years later, when I was grown up, I had dinner with Moss Hart. And he asked me, his son Christopher, who was extremely beautiful, and Christopher wanted to go into the theater as an actor. And Moss said, Sidney, Moss directed me when I was a kid actor. And he said, Sidney, what was it like for you? Is it something that you would recommend for Christopher? And I said, Moss, God, yes. First of all, you cannot be exposed to really creative experiences too early. I do believe that. There's nothing wrong with, what's so great about playing stickball? It's much better to be in my second play, which was directed by Max Reinhardt, with a script by Franz Werfel, with music by Kurt Weill, in which the assistant director was Felix von Mendelssohn III, a great-great-great-grandson of Mendelssohn, exposed to some of the greatest actors in that cast that existed in the theater. And I think it kept me off the streets. I think it was a very good way to grow up. I enlisted in the Army when I was 17. I enlisted because I was very involved with the war, and involved from a political point of view. Was very much for it, did not think one could be for it and stay out and wait to be drafted. So at 17, I went down to Philadelphia to try to enlist in the Navy, and I couldn't because of my eyes. 17 was too young for the Army. You couldn't enlist till you were 18. But the Army had a program. Radar was brand new then, brand new. And they would take you at 17, but not into the Army. You would still be a civilian. But for 6 months, they would train you in radar. And at the end of the 6 months, you'd go into the Army as a radar repairman, into the Signal Corps. So I did that. In that 6-month period, we got a 3-year electronic course, the equivalent of a 3-year electronic course in college. So that from there on in, not much that could happen electrically that confused me. When I got out, I went back to acting for a little while. And you know, all good work is really self-revelation. And I think, for whatever reason, psychically, I got embarrassed at revealing that much of myself to strangers. Because if you're a good stage actor, 8 times a week, here I am. Unzip me, that's it. And something about that must have been bothering me, because I started getting shy about it. You know, I think if you spoke to any number of people who've had any career at all, they would tell you how large a part luck played in it. And I was in the original Actors Studio, which was begun in 1949. And there were 2 classes. The beginner's class, Kazan handled, and the advanced class, Robert Lewis handled. I had been with the group theater as a kid actor. I had done Saroyan's first play, My Heart's in the Highlands, when I was 14. And then gone away with the group to study. Whenever they had a successful season, they would take over a school somewhere, and all of them go away for the summer and work on various projects. So for the first studio experience in Bobby's class, Robert Lewis this was, I felt was wasted time. We were basically working on realism. And as far as I was concerned, Americans were the best realistic actors in the world. And there were so many other styles that we couldn't do and didn't know anything about. And so at any rate, I spoke up and said I thought we were on the wrong course, and I got thrown out. And there were 13 other people who were also let go. And so I just took that as a nucleus, and then invited about 20 more good actors that I knew, and formed my own group downtown. Also, I felt what was very important, which the studio wasn't doing at all, that we needed technical training. We needed voice, we needed diction, because I wanted to get into other styles of acting, and a theater history. And we assembled a great group. Anthony Tudor gave us body movement. Marion Rich gave us voice and diction. It was terrific. And because there was nobody to direct the scenes, I started directing them. I had begun it, and I'd say, okay, well, why don't you move here, and why don't you move here? And things were working nicely, and literally fell into it. And even the professional beginning was an accident. Yul Brynner was a wonderful director. Television was just beginning then. This is 1950 or 51. And I had set up the drama course at High School of Performing Arts, which had just begun. And I was teaching there, and I think I was getting a fast $53 a week. And Yul called me one day. He said, "You're crazy." He says, "Come here. Nobody knows what the hell they're doing." And I went over to CBS and got hired. There was a wonderful guy at CBS, man in charge, and I don't know whether he was director of programming or not. His name was Charlie Underhill. Charlie's idea was that drama was going to be one of the most important staples of television nighttime. And he thought, well, we can teach them the technique. Let's get theater people in. That was the basic premise that he began. People who know acting, people who dealt with writers, who know about structure. And it was Charlie's policy to go out and try to get theater people. I know he hired Yul, I know he hired Marty Ritt, he hired me, he hired Bobby Mulligan, he hired Johnny Frankenheimer. He was a terrific guy. And that was a deliberate policy on his part. So I became Yul's AD. I don't remember how far into the run of the show it was, but at one point, Yul didn't know, he had auditioned for Rodgers and Hammerstein for The King and I. And he didn't know whether he was going to take it. For the first time in his life, Yul had entertained at parties playing the guitar and then eating in the kitchen with the rest of the help. And now he was making good money, and he didn't know whether he wanted to leave the security of that to go try another show. He also wasn't that crazy about Gertie Lawrence. And At any rate, we talked about it a great deal, he, Marty, and I, and he finally decided to take it. And when he did, I was up to directing the show.
The days of live television, you know, they're called the golden days of television. There was a reason. We were so happy. First of all, nobody knew enough about anything to tell you no, because nobody knew how to do it. So it was up to us.
Look at him with his hair. They're all alike, I'm telling you, lovers.
Listen, you dirty slob, you... Mama, don't do that! Let it go, me! I'll get you for this, slobber. I'll take you right back to Puerto Rico! Cut it out!
Just figuring the three networks, CBS, NBC, ABC, having to fill that amount of time. And they couldn't supervise everything. And so that if you got a respectable rating and your sponsor was renewing for next year, they let you alone. They didn't care. The adventure was terrific. And what you learned technically, the camera, the television camera in those days, had a turret in it that the cameraman could turn by hand. And each opening had a different lens. So in a 3-camera show, you were dealing with 12 different lenses. And because because we were doing it live, sometimes it got to such a speeded up level that when looking down below you at the monitors for camera 1, camera 2, camera 3, there wasn't time to ask, are you on a 50, are you on a 75? You had to be able to recognize it. And that is irreplaceable.
I was doing 2 shows a week for CBS at the time. One of them was this melodrama called Danger, half hour on Tuesday. I was also doing, on Sundays, the live version, not the film version, of You Are There, which was a very successful show. Now, 2 half-hour shows a week is a lot of work. When you're doing 2 shows a week, you're carrying 8 shows up here. There's the show that you're on camera with, right? You Are There was a Sunday, Danger was a Tuesday. That means you went on camera Sunday morning and Tuesday morning. That meant that you were already working on the script of the show that came up 3 weeks later, working on the sets and costumes of the show that came up 2 weeks later, working on the casting of the show that was coming up next week, plus your 2 shows coming up this week. So you were carrying 8 shows in your head. Now, I'm eternally grateful to it. It gave me a sense of organization that I still have today. It's the reason I've had this reputation of coming in on schedule and on budget, because nothing is too complicated for me after that. Nothing. Movies are a snap.
Now, all those voting guilty, please raise your hands.
12 Angry Men had been a TV show on another network. I didn't do the television show. When I was doing that show, Danger, among the other writers, and one of them was Reggie Rose, I did about 4 of Reggie's scripts, and when it came time for it to be a movie, Reggie asked me to do it. He and Hank Fonda were the co-producers on it. And then another piece of just sheer good luck. Fonda had been in New York for a number of years doing Mr. Roberts. And during that time, about 2 of his cast members were in a workshop that I had downtown, just an actor's, it was called the Actors Workshop, and it was just a place for actors to meet and work on scenes and so on. And at the end of each year, we'd do a full production. And one of the cast members, a guy by the name of Joe Bernard, asked Hank to come down to see the year-end production. He thought it was marvelous. And so when Reggie suggested me for 12 Angry Men, he had seen this play I had done, and he thought, terrific, let's go. And also because there was no money to make the movie, it cost $349,000. Everything. It's the whole movie. And they could get me cheap. When I began to do 12 Angry Men, everybody said, you're crazy. How can you do a picture in one room? And with the complete arrogance and ignorance of, although not so much ignorance, of youth, I never thought of it as a problem. If one simply made the camera work a part of what the piece was about, emotionally and subjectively, it didn't seem to me to be a problem, and it didn't turn out to be. I never had to force anything. I never had to look for fancy angles, and I rehearse a lot, and I rehearsed 12 Angry Men for 2 weeks, completely staged it, everything going, everybody on their feet, lines learned. The shooting came out of that. As I watched rehearsals, I slowly worked out how I wanted to shoot it, put it all down in advance, so there'd be as little duplication as possible. And made the camera work an organic part of what the drama itself was about. And so it never turned out to be a problem.
Come on, speed it up. He walked twice as fast as that.
If you want me to walk faster than that, I will. Lock, door, stop.
A picture like 12 Angry Men, in which the whole visual progression of the movie is dependent on the lenses. Well, nobody else could have done that for me. I had to do that. And even the most sensitive cameraman, he might have been able to do it, but I don't think he would have done it as well, with that amount of character revelation. So I was very grateful to television for that. I think I do get very good performances, and I think the reason for that is that I was an actor. So I know their fears, I know what frightens them.
Actors, the only instrument they've got, it's not a violin, it's not a piano, it's not just their bodies the way a dancer is. There's no disguise. That's them up there. And the better they are, the more of themselves they're using. That process of self-revelation is extremely painful. I understand that process. If I can help them to feel any more secure and any more unafraid of releasing whatever part of themselves they have to, I understand that I can help them that way. And they feel that. I don't even have to articulate it. They sense it.
I'll give you a demonstration. Somebody get up. I want you to watch this because I don't want to have to do it again. I'll make myself about 6 or 7 inches shorter, okay?
It's about right, maybe a little more.
Okay, a little more.
What's it?
Nobody's hurt. Right?
Right, nobody hurt.
The one thing that does stand out is Hank himself. It was the first time he was a producer. I'd always found him one of the best American movie actors. To me, the 3 best American movie actors of that time were Fonda and James Mason and Spencer Tracy. And he had taken on this job as producer, hated it. For example, he never watched himself. even when a picture was over, he wouldn't see it till maybe a year later or something like that. He couldn't bear watching himself. A lot of actors like that. And here he was the producer, so theoretically he had to come to rushes. And he came the first day and was sitting in back of me, and the first shot came up and he reached around and squeezed my neck and said, "It's brilliant," and walked out and never came again. He was that shy about himself. That's one of the most interesting memories for me about it, is Hank trying to wear another hat. Distributing a picture like 12 Angry Men in those days was unknown. It fell into the category to them of a European art house movie. And for our sins, we opened at Easter at the Capitol. Now, the Capitol was on 51st. I think it sat like 4,000 people. It had a stage show. I don't know whose band was playing. And not quite the release that the picture should have had. Wonderful reviews, and we were out of there in 2.5 weeks because the nut, what it cost to run that theater, we just weren't earning even the nut.
I think it's wonderful to be in a profession where you need physical labor, and movies are very exhausting physically. I don't know about how other directors work, but the crew put a pedometer on me one day, and in a day, I paced off 11 miles, you know, just moving around. It was in the studio. I mean, it's not as if I was running up and back on a location. So you're working very hard physically, but you're working for an emotional, psychological, philosophical result. The upshot of it, if you do it well, is that it's more than physical labor. So that's a nice way to live.